The Nürburgring. If you've spent any time reading about cars, you've probably heard the term. What is it? It's a merciless 13-mile track with terrifying twists, turns, and dips. And arguably the most dangerous race course in the world. But it's become a sort of holy destination for drivers, professional and amateur, who make the pilgrimage to the small town of Nürburgring, Germany. Since its construction in 1927, the ring has tragically claimed the lives of just under 70 motorsport heroes. Legendary Formula One driver Jackie Stewart famously crowned the track the Green Hell, a nickname it holds to this day. But just what makes the Nürburgring so brutal? The Nürburgring is actually composed of two different courses, but it's the site's northern loop, or Nordschleife, that most associate with the track. As the world's longest racetrack, the Nordschleife remains the ultimate test of skill amongst professional drivers competing in extreme races, like the 24 Hours of Nürburgring endurance race. A closer look at the track reveals three things that make it such a challenge, even for the most skilled drivers: the steep elevation changes, blind corners, and the lack of runoff areas. Let's start with the elevation changes. For an idea of just how severe the Nürburgrings are, the total difference in altitude from the track's highest point to its lowest is a jaw-dropping 985 feet. And it doesn't occur gradually either. The shifts in elevation are abrupt and spontaneous, providing plenty of challenges for those who don't know the track thoroughly, and even those who do. One of the best examples of this happens fairly early in the track, at a section known as Foxhole. This section features 5 sweeping corners that can be taken at full speed, but it's at the last corner when the track goes into a steep downhill descent, then immediately elevates, that you feel more G-forces than you've ever felt. To better understand what driving through it is like, we caught up with someone who circles the ring over 1,000 times every year. Misha Shrudin is a race car driver, course instructor, and YouTuber who knows every inch of the track like the back of his hand. He's even managed to guide a driver around it while completely blindfolded.
Left curb, right curb, and continue going straight towards the left side of the track into the small white sign ahead of you, holding 3, and brakes.
You have Foxhole. It's very, very downhill descent followed by an instant climb. And what a lot of people do, they think like, oh, let me see what the top speed of my car is because I'm going downhill now. And then they brake at the lowest point. The issue here is the weight transfer. When you brake at the complete bottom, you have the weight transfer already because the car will change its direction from going downhill to uphill. And when you apply the brakes on that, you will most likely end up in the barrier.
But it's near the ring's end that drivers face one of the most daunting sections of racetrack in the world when it comes to elevation change. Located 10.5 miles into the track is a section called Flånsgarden, known for its number of career-ending accidents. There is zero room for error on this series of jumps and turns, where drivers will find it nearly impossible not to go airborne.
So you actually literally, your car will jump 3 times over, I would say, a period of 1 minute. Your car would be airborne 1 time straight before the braking zone. 1 time you will go a bit sideways, maybe even in the air as well. And 1 time you would be going over 120 miles per hour over a slight bump while changing direction. So when you have a mistake there, it will usually end up in a very, very, let's say, track closure. People will have to close the track, how bad of an accident it's going to be.
But it isn't simply jumps and drops that cause so many accidents on the Nürburgring. On a 13-mile track, made up of around 170 different tight corners, about 90% of them are blind. The ring's infamous turn they call Kallenhard, about 5 miles into the track, is the perfect example of just how blind these corners can be.
It's difficult because it's very blind and it gets very tight. It has a very, very, very late apex, and people just don't expect that because they think, well, the turn should be over now. No, it gets tighter, 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 and it's very blind. And you see a lot of accidents happen there. So you had to stay very slow, very much on the outside, slow feet, fast hands, and get it right. And this is something what people really mess up. So this is, I would say, in terms of the blind corner, Kallenhard is definitely one of the most challenging ones.
It's also the lack of sufficient runoff areas that separates the Nürburgring from the rest of the world's professional racetracks. While most courses feature plenty of zones for out-of-control vehicles to safely depart from the track, less than a handful of corners at the Nürburgring have what could even be considered runoff areas. For the majority of the course, drivers will find that there is less than a meter separating the track from the barriers. This means that even the slightest mistakes can result in cars smashing into the walls. But as intimidating a track like the Green Hell can be, Misha has a few simple words of advice for those everyday drivers looking to tackle the ring for the very first time.
I always say you cannot impress here anyone after 93 years of history, but you can make everybody laugh. So make sure to be the person that does not make us laugh after ending up on YouTube for some bad crash video.